In this video, we're going to talk about how to find special coordinates of a quadratic function. We want to find the x-intercepts, y-intercept, and vertex, and in this case, our function is f of x equals x plus 11 times x minus 7. This is written in factored form. So when it's written in factored form, the x-intercepts are easy to find. Sometimes they're called the zeros, and we can find those by looking at what value of x would make each factor 0. And when it's just x by itself, it's easy because it's just going to be the opposite of whatever you're adding and subtracting. So for this factor, the 0 would be negative 11, and for this factor, the 0 would be positive 7. Another way that you can figure them out is by setting each factor equal to 0 and solving the equation for x. So if x plus 11 equals 0, I can subtract 11 from both sides and get negative 11. And x minus 7 equals 0, I would add 7 to both sides, and that would give me positive 7. So my two x-intercepts are negative 11 and 7. Or I could write them in coordinate pair form. These are the x coordinates, and 0 is the y coordinate. So they're negative 11, 0, and positive 7, 0. Now to find the y-intercept, I need to put the function into standard form. And in order to do that, I need to multiply it out. Now we saw last week a few different ways to think about multiplying it out. You can use the distributive property, FOIL, or draw a box. I'm going to draw a box to help myself do this. So my box is going to look like this. And we have x plus 11 and x minus 7. So when I multiply, I get x squared, I get plus 11x, I get minus 7x, and I get negative 77. And then I need to combine my like terms. So we have x squared plus 11x minus 7x minus 77. And when we combine these two like terms, that gives us x squared plus 4x minus 77. And the y-intercept, once we have it in standard form, is always the number that is by itself. So in this case, the y-intercept is negative 77. Or if we want to write that in coordinate form, it would be 0, comma, negative 77. Negative 77 would be the y-coordinate. Now we want to find the vertex. So to find the vertex, what you're going to do is the vertex is always going to be in the middle of the two x-intercepts. So on my graph, it's going to look something like this, where I have an x-intercept at negative 11 and another x-intercept at 7. My y-intercept is way down here at negative 77. So my vertex is halfway between these two x-intercepts. So in order to figure out what halfway is, I would take the average. The average is going to be the number that is in the middle. So I'm going to average the x-intercepts, and that's going to give me negative 11 plus 7 divided by 2. Remember, to find the average of numbers, you add them and divide by how many numbers you have. In this case, I have two numbers, negative 11 and 7, so I'm dividing by 2. If you're finding the average of your x-intercepts for a quadratic function, there would be 2, and so you would be finding the average of two numbers. So negative 2 is what I got. Now what this is telling me is the x-coordinate of the vertex. In order to get the y-coordinate of the vertex, I need to plug that in either to my original function, or I could plug it into the one that I wrote in standard form. I'll plug it into my original function. So f of negative 2 is negative 2 plus 11 times negative 2 minus 7, which is 9 times negative 9, which is negative 81. So this is my y-coordinate. So overall, my vertex, I'll write it in red here, the x-coordinate is negative 2 and the y-coordinate is negative 81. This is the x-coordinate. I got that by doing the average of the x-intercepts. Then I plugged that into my original function up here. I plugged negative 2 in for x and for both x's to find the y-coordinate. Do the math and then you get the y-coordinate. So we have the x-coordinate is negative 2, the y-coordinate is negative 81. So on my graph, it's going to be a point about around here. And that's the vertex, or the lowest point of the parabola. So my parabola should look something like this. And lastly, we're going to go to Desmos.com to graph the function and check our answers. So my function here is x plus 11 times x minus 7. So I'm going to type that in and then look at my graph. I need to zoom out a little bit, or I can change the window, or I can move the graph just by kind of pulling things like this. So looking at my graph, I see my x-intercepts here. We have one at 7, 0, and one at negative 11, 0, which matches what I thought. And then I'm going to go down here, all the way down here. I see I have my y-intercept, 0, negative 77, that's what I put, and negative 2, negative 81, that's what I got for the vertex, so it matches. So remember to copy and paste your graph. You can't just copy from the toolbar because it's always just going to say calculator and give you the generic calculator. You want to copy the specific graph that you have here. And so to do that, you would click on the Share Graph button and then click Copy. Your link should always have some random letters and numbers afterwards when you paste it. So I'm going to go back here and paste my link. And that's my link for the graph.